Today we're going to talk about growing squash, and I'm basically going to give you guys all of the tips and tricks from its light, water, and nutrient requirements to pest management and certain things to look out for. And make sure you stick around to the very end because I'm going to give you 2 pro tips that a lot of people don't usually give you. So this plant below me is a zucchini, but this is going to apply to any kind of squash that you're wanting to grow, whether it's yellow crookneck and more bushy varieties like this, or even other vining types of squash like acorn, butternut, pumpkins, anything like that. If there's one thing that I'll recommend that you grow, it's going to be squash. They are insanely prolific producers. They grow very fast, and even though they do have their own drawbacks when it comes to pests, they still are a very beginner-friendly plant. They love to receive bright light. More sun equals more production, but with that being said, they will need some afternoon shade at some point, especially here in the very intense Texas heat and the sun. You will see these wilt during the day if you do have them out under full sun, so it is recommended that you do give them some kind of afternoon shade. When it comes to watering these, consistency is key. These do not like drying out completely all the way at all. I made a video the other day talking about the truth of calcium deficiency. This is one plant that you will see something called blossom end rot with, which is rotten fruit, misshapen fruit, or even bitter fruit. It is not because this plant is lacking calcium, it is because you are inconsistently watering. So you need to make sure that these receive consistent moisture. They do not want to dry out. When it comes to nutrients, these plants are heavy feeders. They're going to especially need nitrogen in the early stages for the green leafy growth, and then phosphorus and potassium for flowering. So a good way to approach that would be to just build really rich soil. Make sure to get a good amount of compost in here, and then lightly feed these about once a month. When it comes to flowering, this plant produces male and female flowers. Now, I don't have any flowers in here right now. They're just beginning to bud, but some common issues that people tend to have in the very beginning is they have a ton of flowers but they're not getting any fruit, and not only that, they see a ton of male flowers. It is completely normal to notice and have nothing but male flowers at first. Eventually that should shift at some point and you should start to get some female flowers. So if you're having issues with that, you may want to look at the heat and light exposure for this. Being under heat stress will affect how your plant flowers, and you may need to shade it, you may need to move it. And then you also want to look at poor pollination. So you might need to make sure you plant some flowers, bring in those pollinators into your garden, invite them with having a good amount of flowers planted in and around your garden. When it comes to pests, the biggest gripe that you will hear from anybody, myself included, is the squash vine borer, squash bugs, aphids, but especially the squash vine borer. I have been losing my battle against her. Squash vine borer is a moth that comes in and lays its eggs down in the base of the plant. They may even lay them around the lower leaves, and that larva will eventually hatch, and then it immediately will drill and burrow its way down into the stem of your plant. Zucchini stems are hollow, so they go in there and they basically feed on the plant from the inside out. You will start to see it wilt and droop, and eventually you will start to see your stem split open, and they leave like almost like this sawdust looking stuff behind on the stem. So far in the last 2 years, I have not planted squash. This is the first year we are doing it again, and it is purely because of the squash vine borer. Common diseases and problems that you have to look out for, again with these, is going to be blossom end rot and powdery mildew. Make sure these plants receive good airflow. You have to especially watch out for this in Texas due to our heat and humidity, especially early spring when we're getting rain. They can be very disease prone to powdery mildew and things of that sort. Now, here's my 2 pro tips for you. If you look along your zucchini stems right here and even under the leaves, you're going to see clear spines. These spines hurt so bad. They will break off in your finger, and they are clear and thin and small. It will be very hard to find them. So when it comes to handling your squash coming in here, they'll even be on the fruit as well. So make sure you put gloves on As a beginner, nobody told me this, so I found out the hard way. Now, what's really cool about squash is that they don't rely on one root system, that they will actually root anywhere along the stem that gets buried, and that's because they are adventitious rooters. If you look down in here, you can see parts of my stem that got buried by the mulch, and it started to root. Now, this is a great defense system against the squash vine borer, because if they do happen to make their way in there, you could, in theory, just bury the stem. In doing that, you'll have this new area that doesn't have any vine borers in the stem. It can go on producing and being healthy, and you can cut off and separate that area that does have those vine borers in that stem. If you found this video helpful, save it for later and share it with another gardener. Bye, my planty besties.